face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Goins.
Here.
Councilmember Bover. Councilmember Koss. Here. Councilmember Warner.
Here.
The Attorney Garganese. City Manager, or Assistant City Manager, I'm sorry, Acting City Manager Fior.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2, which is approval of agenda and minutes. Item number 1 is the agenda for regular meeting on March 25th, 2020.
Motion to approve the agenda minus delegations since we have no audience tonight.
Second.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Warner, a second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, item number 2 are minutes from our regular meeting of January 22nd, 2020, and special meeting of February 26th, 2020.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the first from January 22nd and to approve the February 26th minutes with the following amendments. Page 14, paragraph 4, sentence 3 was in reference to, we were talking about engineers' salaries and seeking engineers. The sentence reads, they could look into salary comparison, which would not compare to other municipalities, but they could look at the private sector. I think the intent, and I think this was Tammy, it's probably paraphrasing, we do have competitive engineer salaries with other municipalities. It's just that we're not as competitive with the private sector, right?
Right. Well, that and exactly, the other private sectors are making offers to candidates before 6 months before they graduate college, and they're traveling nationwide to get candidates.
Sure, so
So-
my amendment then would be, they could look into salary comparison, period. We know we have competitive salaries with other municipalities, but we have not looked into private sector salaries. Is that fair?
Now, you're changing what it says.
Yeah, but what was stated, basically said that we're not competitive with other municipalities when in fact we are.
You're just changing the wording.
I'm changing the wording. Is that the way
I'll
you'd like to say it? I think it's important. I think it's important the minutes reflect that we do pay competitive salaries for engineers. And on page 15, these are less important changes, but there is a typo on page 15, paragraph 2. Okay. So the sentence starts with /1. I think it was a cut and paste error. And then in paragraph 4, sentence 3, this was in reference to the surveys that we're going to be doing. It says staff is working with the city's attorney office in regards to some of the wording of the country, and I think they meant to say survey there. So with those amendments,
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilwoman Koss with some changes on the special meeting from February 26th, and we have a second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we have no awards and presentations. We're gonna move on to our reports. No boards and advisory committees. City administration.
I do have one from an advisory committee member that came, board member that wrote in.
Oh, okay.
Jennifer Riggs, who's the chair of the Sustainability Committee.
Yes, ma'am.
So she wrote, council members, thank you all for your tireless work in these strange times. Stay well. I bring good news. On February 29th, a group of Cocoa neighbors hosted a neighborhood progressive dinner they had organized with a threefold objective: to increase our sense of neighborhood and neighborliness through conversations and celebration, to increase awareness and education on lagoon health topics, and to raise money to support the Marine Resources Council's report card. We raised $3,550 as a restricted gift for the MRC. This is to prepare, publish, and disseminate the MRC's annual report card. The report card details changes in water quality annually. Over time, this can be used to correlate with ongoing work in the Indian River Lagoon cleanup efforts paid for by the half-cent sales tax and assess their efficacy. Many thanks to the hosts and their families who opened their homes and prepared a course to share with their neighbors. Bridget Haygood and Frank Jones, Jane and Randy Naylor, Johnny and Roger Nauman, Jennifer and Todd Riggs, Jeanette and Frank Sullivan. This event proved extremely successful in promoting both education and goodwill among neighbors. Although it is not technically a sustainability committee issue or topic, the experience demonstrated itself to me as a model for promoting a sense of civic belonging and empowering citizens through sound information. I believe we will see better practices related to lawn and yard care, etc., from those who attended. This may be something we could consider adding to the action plan. I understand that there is an agenda item to consider funding the Marine Resources Council $1,000. I hope you will consider supporting this. Thank you, Jennifer Riggs, Chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a great event. I attended that event. It was actually a first. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And they raised almost $4,000.
Yeah, very educational. Okay, is that it? Anyone else, or?
That was all I had for
Okay.
people that reported it.
Chief Lamb?
No.
Thank you. Matt just asked me to give you an update from the other hat that I wear for our emergency manager in the city of Cocoa. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date kind of where we're at as a city and what the EOC is doing and how we're still that. So I'm doing the EOC is still staffed at a level 2, which means we're maintaining awareness, attending all the conference calls and everything. Just to kind of give you a typical layout of how that works. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm on 3 conference calls, starting at 1 o'clock and then normally end by 5. One's our local county EOC conference call that they have on a routine basis on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The second is a conference call with the state of Florida and the Florida
Is that on, Mike?
No.
There you go. Florida Department of Health Council. See, I wasn't hearing things. And then the last call is through the DEM, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, and kind of where things lay out. So it's pretty busy, but it's very informative. There's a lot of information going in and out. I will say that this week we've had a request in through state DEM that we went through our local county EOC for N95 masks, gowns, some of the important items that we needed for our first responders, because we were running out and basically we didn't have any. Much like a lot of the country, those things are back ordered and it's been very hard to get. So on Tuesday, we got the phone call from the county EOC and they had a small cache that came in that they were actually dividing up between all the municipalities. We were able to get 6 boxes. So there's 30 masks and 95 masks per box. We were able to take and split that up. PD got 90, we got 90 for our people, and started getting that material out. That did not null and void our request to the state for a lot more of those items. It was just to try and help us get through as much as we could. So we're still staying vigilant with that. I've talked to my counterpart at the state, Kevin Guthrie, on the issue and what we're facing, not just here within our own municipality, but in the county as a whole, with those back orders and the shortages that we're seeing for our first responders. It's at an epidemic level, much like the disease that we're dealing with. And there's really no end in sight. So they're aware of it. They're doing the best they can. But I'm proud to say that, through the efforts of our city council and all of our department heads, there has been no substantial stop on us being able to use any resources necessary to get that equipment for all of our city employees to protect them. So we've implemented some actions through the city manager's office, working with Ms. Jamadi and the human resources manager to ensure that we've addressed both the state and federal guidelines that have come out. But the biggest thing that we can encourage people to do is follow the CDC direction. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now. Social distancing, hand washing, staying out of large crowds, all those things are what they're recommending. There's not been a push by the governor at this point for people to quarantine themselves. Now, he did just come out today and said that anyone 65 or older should self-quarantine for 14 days. It just goes back to what the CDC's been pushing on this whole self-quarantine thing and really trying to look out for our neighbors. So I think as this event goes on, you're going to see more and more changes. But the biggest things that we have been talking about on the county level, as far as with the county's ERC, one was something that I wanted to follow up with Ms. Koss on. I think that she brought up at the last council meeting, was our homeless population. What would we do in the event if we had one of our homeless victims show up positive for COVID-19? How would we isolate the rest? I posed that question the very next day when we had our conference call. I talked to John Scott about it on the conference call. That was something they were working with the health department on and some of their other partners. So when we had our conference call today, I brought it back around to him again and said, what was the follow-up on that? They are working with the Brevard Homeless Coalition on that, and they're really doing it on a case-by-case basis. The coalition actually has a good handle on where those populations are at, how they're set up, and the needs that would need to be addressed in the event that happens. So they don't have much like a hurricane where we address an overall arching problem and make shelters and have shelters open. This is a little different. You're talking about a medical type emergency. So this is something that we really haven't dealt a lot with and are struggling. I'll be quite honest with you. We're all struggling nationwide. So, but they surely have not lost sight of that. So they're going to continue to take a look at that, but certainly that is not something that has fallen by the wayside, and they will certainly address that. So I just wanted council to know, and Ms. Cox to know that I did address that concern.
And I have to credit, it was actually the mayor, but
Okay.
No, it doesn't
for
matter.
that.
We're all here together, so we're in this together. So.
that's okay.
No, that's all right.
Please don't write me off your Christmas list.
No, we're all in this together, so it doesn't. Yeah, that's all right.
So, but that did certainly get addressed, and they
Yeah.
have not lost sight of that. So, just to bring you up to speed where we're at in the county as a whole, there are 11 cases, confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Brevard County. 4 in Melbourne, 2 in Titusville, 2 in Palm Bay, 1 in Cocoa Beach, 1 in Indian Harbor, and 1 here in the city of Cocoa. So, as we start seeing the test become more and more available, I think that you will see more and more cases pop up. And that's just part of what we're dealing with right now. But certainly our staff, the EM staff, is very aware of the situation and the severity of the situation, but we're certainly cognizant of the need to continue to provide services for our citizens here in the city. And I hate to sound crass about it, but really it is business as usual for us as first responders, police and PD. We understand the emergent need and things for us to do, but it's also making us revamp and look at the way we respond to calls now and calls for service. And it certainly does not mean that we're blowing them off, but we certainly have to be more cautious, especially in a small municipality like we are now, to ensure that we protect our own people and still provide a high quality of service. So with that being said, I didn't want to take up a lot of your time tonight, but we still have a lot of items that are out there that we have ordered and will continue to provide the safety and protection for our employees that are back ordered. It's a national back order. We are checking on those items with our vendors at least every other day, if not every other hour almost. But we're staying vigilant to ensure that we don't get lost in that shuffle from our vendor side and both from the state side on the requests that we've put in so far.
Thank you, sir. Hold on, just one second. I just got one question for me now. Are we, I know the governor was encouraging that we, I know we have vendors out there that if we can find it locally, are we looking at those options as well, or?
So you're gonna find this a little entertaining.
I know.
So, absolutely, we're going to places to find equipment that we would probably not normally buy things. And I'll give you an example of that was, so Monday, I went to Sherwin-Williams, I went to Panther Airboats, I went to the glass company up here by the old fire station to try and find N95 masks.
Wow.
Believe it or not, those companies actually use those when they're using their process. And not even they had N95 masks. And I told them all, I said, look, we are willing to pay for those. We will buy them. I'm not asking you to give them to us. We need them for our first response. The steel company, the fabrication shop that was behind the old Station 1, she actually had a box and gave them to us and said, here, take these. Now, it's 20 masks that she had left. And I said, look, I don't want to jeopardize your employment, nor do I just want to take something. Please allow me to pay for them. And she said, absolutely not. She said, we want you guys to take care of our citizens here in the community. Take them. Kind of awkward, but I took them. And I took them back to our responders, so we would actually have that protective equipment. So we're pulling out every stop to try and find this equipment. We just got an approval from the International Association of Fire Chiefs and Trailbird, who makes hazmat suits. We had some old hazmat suits here in the city for level B response type things. They're splash resistant suits. They were out of date, but really there was nothing wrong with the suits. They weren't falling apart. There's no integrity issues. And we finally got a letter from them saying, yes, if you don't have any PPE, something's better than nothing, use those.
Yeah.
So we started pulling that stuff out of storage to use in the event that we have to make entry to a patient who is positive for COVID-19 to protect our employees. So there's some unconventional ways, unfortunately, that we're having to use right now to try and find some things or use things that we normally would not use that just aren't normal. But we're certainly doing everything that we can to try and do those things.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Goins.
Sorry, I gave you a long answer for a short question.
No. Oh,
I
okay.
think it's me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Everybody's moved.
Councilwoman Cox.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in terms of the growth, so I started writing it down on Saturday, so that was 4 days ago. It has literally doubled in 4 days. And so people in Brevard feel pretty safe because probably a lot of us don't know anyone that has it, but this is an exponential growth rate, and we haven't even begun to start testing. So does that mean in 2 days, it's twice as many?
Well, and that's a great point you bring up is if you actually you can actually pull some of that data that she was talking about off the CDC website, and there's a detailed data sheet that goes into it. And if you look, Brevard County to date has only tested 166 people. That was as of 10 a.m. this morning. 7% of those proved to be positive for COVID-19. Now, when you think how large this county is, and we've only tested 166 people, there's a lot of people out there that probably have it that we don't even know about yet. That should make you want to quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one of the realities that we're dealing with right now with the tests being short, them trying to push manufacturers for more testing, more availability of the test, and just how rampant it is across the United States as a whole.
And just one thing, Chief, you might want to, I don't know if you've done this already, reach out to the powers that be out at the Space Center, because let me tell you, they got every form of PPE that you can imagine out there, and they are well stocked out there. And so, I mean, if it gets down to that point, I would reach out to some of them, you know. So, thank you, sir. Chief Cantaloupe.
I was just going to touch real quick on, I provided each of you with a couple flyers that we're currently passing out to the community. The one covers issues with restaurants and bars. There was some concern and I think some confusion when the governor's order first came down about who could do what. So we tried to simplify that and also make it more friendly and try to tell everybody, you know, we're in this together. We need their help to fix it. So it kind of just lays it out for them what they can do and what they can't do. If they're an actual bar, they should actually be closed. If you're serving food, you can serve it as takeout. They actually are allowing restaurants to serve food and alcohol as long as it is in a closed, sealed container. We did explain to some of them that plastic cup with a lid on it is not a closed, sealed container. So, but we've been working through it. Everybody's been pretty responsive. Like I said, the one we're passing that out to all the restaurants and bars. The second one just kind of gives a little bit of information about social distancing and some of the other things. We went around and hit all of our parks today in the village, Provost Park, Junior Rios, and anybody that was in the parks, we kind of stopped and talked to them, made sure that they understood that they needed to be in small groups. Even at Provost today, most of them were pretty receptive to the fact that they realize what's going on, and they're even though they want to still hang out some, they are trying to be as socially responsible as possible. So I think that's going good. But I just wanted to give you a copy of that, so if anybody had asked, that's kind of what we're doing right now. And we actually did a couple of different videos, and we're going to put out a couple more in the next couple days. Again, talking about that same thing. So you should see some stuff on our Facebook page here shortly, along with these flyers.
Thank you, sir.
I got a question.
Councilwoman Warner.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
just going to ask the chief, are the bathrooms in the parks, the ones that have bathrooms, are they open? Are they able to at least wash their hands, and can we
Downtown
encourage that?
bathrooms were open. Today, I actually talked to somebody from Parks and Rec that showed up in the afternoon because I believe the bathrooms at Provost were locked. So I'd mentioned to them, and I was going to talk to Matt about it after the meeting. I had mentioned to them that they really need to make sure they unlock those bathrooms, number one. And number two, they need to make sure there's soap in those bathrooms so people can wash their hands.
And maybe we should put up some reminders about
We did.
washing
We
their
actually
hands, yeah.
put, and you'll see in the video we put on Facebook, we actually put this on, I believe, Junior Rios on, we couldn't get to the ones at Provost, but we will go back, and then in the village, we put these on the doors to the bathroom so people would kind of see them when they were going in and out of the bathrooms.
Thank
We
you.
don't make it overbearing. But
Yeah.
that way, people that go in and out will actually see them and maybe read them and think about when they go in there actually washing their hands.
Great.
Lip and Red Gordon.
Most of the soap dispensaries inside the bathroom at Provost don't work. That's another problem too. I don't know if it'd be smart to leave maybe a bottle, but maybe they need to replace some of the dispensaries.
Yeah, there's been a rash disappearance of toilet paper
Yes.
and
Yeah.
soap lately.
Yeah.
Seems as fast as you can put the toilet paper out, it seems to disappear.
Would you think about considering? I know on the beach they're closing some of the beaches right now. Well, considering it Friday, maybe depending on all this testing going on, if our numbers increase, thinking about closing some of the parks. I know that's down the road, but
I know it. I had talked to the sheriff briefly and a couple other chiefs. We all kind of felt that, yes, we want people to social distance. Yes, we want them to do the right thing. But I think it's going to be hard to tell people to just stay home.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to go exercise. They want to go, talk to other people. I mean, staying in the house, which a lot of people are doing, but just to stay in the house for 14 days, I think is going to be very rough on a lot of people.
especially with kids in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we're afraid to see, domestic violence cases going up.
Right.
I'm sure the consumption of alcoholic beverages are going up. The consumption of food's going up.
Yeah.
So I would say as a last resort, maybe if they don't, but you know, that's kind of what we explained to each person that we talked to in the parks today was that, look, here's the deal. If you do the right things and you sit 6 feet apart and you wash your hands and you don't gather up in groups of more than 10, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. I think that will be okay. And that way you're not, like I said, locking everybody down.
Gotcha. All right,
That could
thank you.
get ugly.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, I mean, we as an agency have tried to triage a lot of our calls too. A lot of stuff we're calling people back and doing reports and stuff over the phone. And I was telling people that too. The more restrictions you put on, the more interactions we have to have. You know, you've seen like some of the other cities have put curfews in. Well, somebody's got to stop those people that are out between 11 and 5 in the morning to find out why and that. So you're having additional encounters, which increases the risk of first responders, you know,
That's a good point.
contracting or coming in contact with COVID-19.
Okay, Councilwoman Cox.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really agree with you on the parks. I think that, you know, we're going to have a better appreciation for these open outdoor spaces where we can socialize at a safe distance. In my neighborhood, we had one get-together where everybody brought their own chair, their own drink, and we sat under a big shade tree.
Yep.
And, you know, we're able to socialize. But also I wanted to say in regard to the toilet paper issue, because the shelves are bare. And I just wanted to tell people that I spoke with a friend from college who currently lives in Manhattan, and she says, oh yeah, but don't worry about that, because in 2 weeks they'll be filled again, because that's the way New York was 2 weeks ago. And we know how bad the situation is there. It just takes time to replenish and get ahead of the curve.
And the other thing too on these I wanted to bring up, we are actually working on translating these into Spanish, and we will hand them out also in Spanish. And then the video that we did today, we actually did it in English and Spanish.
Good.
So hopefully that will
Great.
help our
Yeah.
Hispanic community.
And we see the toilet paper coming back. It's more of the, it's more of the bread, the lunch meat, ground beef, and chicken
think
because the
all of it-
kids are home every day.
Yeah, I think all of it is going to come back. I think what's happened is the
Yeah, but there's
demand
plenty of
went up
peanut
so
butter.
much.
Yeah.
I don't think the supply is not there. I just think they're having trouble getting that additional supply
Yeah.
to the stores right now.
Yeah.
So I think they're working on that.
Yeah.
Like Councilwoman Cross said, within a couple weeks, I think they'll have that figured out. Instead of getting, you know, 1 or 2 trucks a day, they're going to get 4 or 5 trucks a day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sir.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Ma'am.
I need to give you an update. The last special meeting we had, we discussed about the city manager recruitment, and I reached out to 3 firms that are specialized in public sector executive recruitment, and we're in the process of evaluating those proposals. I'd like to bring them to y'all in a meeting. I just want to discuss, since there's no public access to the meeting right now, did y'all want to discuss when you would like to see that? Because I'd like to invite the firms to present to all of y'all as a group.
Yeah, whenever, as soon as we can, or whenever it's, you know, safe to do so.
I was going to say ASAP, and why can't we do this by conference call? Can we do part of it by conference call? I mean,
are the firms local, or are they gonna have to fly in, or they're local?
They're 2 are in Daytona area and one's in Lakeland, so they're local.
Because I was gonna say, there's no reason they couldn't come in one at a time and present. I mean,
Yeah.
as long as the public has access and the ability to ask questions or at least watch what's going on, I think we're safe under the law, but
Would you like to do it as a special meeting and schedule it during the day? Would you like to see something like that? Or?
Yeah, we can do a special meeting, that's fine.
yeah, as soon as possible.
Okay.
That's just for discussion.
This is to select the firm and discuss the process that the firm will present to you, and get y'all's input on what you'd like to see in the process.
Is it common for every municipality to use a firm?
Yes.
Do we have? Is it? It
Yeah.
is.
yeah.
Okay.
For key positions like the city manager, it is. You're going after candidates that are most likely working at the moment. So they have deep candidate pools where they do email blasts and advertisements in specialized areas.
Maybe the last time we went outside for a city manager, which has been over 20 years ago, we used a search firm.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't find, I was searching in Laserfish and I didn't find anything.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was late
Recently.
90s, I think. But yeah, we went for Mr. Bonchak, and then we did another one when Mr. Holt was hired. There was a outside search done when he was hired. Mr. Greenwood and Mr. Blake could give you all the details on that. They were part of that 6-hour fight to hire a city manager.
And part of the process is for the selected recruiter firm to meet with each of you to discuss and get input from you on what you like to see in an ideal candidate, and to put all that together into.
If we could do all
package
that
to
in one day,
advertise.
maybe have the individual meetings and then do the presentation in one day, so we don't have to keep leaving home, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Jack? Any-
What, water's coming out of the faucets?
It's good.
I don't have to buy it?
Yeah, thank you, council. Just a quick update. Obviously, all the directors, including myself, have been working real closely with Matt and everyone else in the city to try to come up with contingency plans, essentially. And I've been, writing a lot of stuff down and quite honestly, kind of spitballing in terms of scenarios, trying to understand where this may go and what are the places you're doing, and because we're kind of behind the curve as you well know from other cities who are kind of ahead of us in terms of their saturation. So we've done a number of steps. I'm just going to quick hit a couple of highlights. Beyond the social distancing and the cleaning and some of the modifications that we've made, we also have some of our own staff that are wiping down doorknobs and other things that we have to touch in certain areas. In fact, I just saw somebody do it before I came over here. We're keeping supplies nearby as much as we can. We did institute some telecommuting within the utilities this week. A couple people were approved. There's a couple more, I think, pending right now to help the folks who either have pre-existing conditions or have that capacity or want to voluntarily telecommute and their job description can make that happen. We're making that happen right now. But my primary thoughts are honestly with the water production and the sewer plant. Those are the two key areas for us. We have a problem there. Obviously, it's a problem for many of the citizens in the city of Cocoa as well as in our service area. So it's an utmost importance for us to really be disciplined about what we do there. I've been working with Chris Collier and with Katie Enos and with Frank Palmieri over at the wastewater plant to talk about the different scenarios that we potentially could be faced. So right now we are thinking, I just talked to Matt this afternoon about actually because our water field operations group is so large, we're going to try to spread out their start times so that they're not all starting at the same time. Spread them out, spread out their lunches and other things, and that'll minimize our impact and our interaction, if you will, at the same time, at the beginning of the day, at the lunchtime, and at the end of the day. I think it's a really good idea. So we'll implement that as soon as we get that going. So we've also been working on contingency plans at both the wastewater plant and the water plant about how we would staff. We've talked specifically about minimum staffing to meet the requirements for both plants, and then we also have obviously detailed out, who our licensed operators are, who our apprentices are, and basically where we're, what do we need, what's our minimum numbers. So we have all that all arranged. It's really just a matter of how well our social distancing works and for how long. If somebody gets sick at one of the plants, then we'll have to enact one of the contingency plans. I know that the chief is already working on getting a fogger for an immediate decontamination, so if we just can't walk away for a couple of days and let it, kind of run its course, we have to get kind of right back in there. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about, keeping those areas running, and that really is the primary push in terms of what I'm thinking about right now. Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Cost?
Well, do you have any idea of what the percentage is of staff that you could actually, I know there are certain jobs that you have to have.
Yeah, I have all of that. I have to have one licensed operator and one apprentice minimum really for each plant, for each shift. Now, we're currently doing 3 shifts, but that's the kinds of things that we're talking about. We could go to 2 shifts, make modifications to the schedule if we had to. And if we're running surface water, which we're just getting ready to start it up, so we may end up holding off on that because then we would need 3 operators at the plant. primary and 2 apprentices. So we're in the thought process. I think we're going to hold off. We could probably hold off for a few weeks. What we'll probably end up doing is turning all the equipment on so it runs and operates, but we don't actually feed the water. It actually would allow us to just, if we had to go down to a minimum, we could go to, basically, we would need 4 people a day. I mean, that's to cover a day shift and an evening shift if we went to 12 floors. We have 12, 13 licensed operators, including the chief operator. At the water plant, we have, I believe it's 7 or 8 at the wastewater plant. So, and we're a bit understaffed on the wastewater side. We had a couple of apprentices and an operator or 2 already leave, so we've actually have some requests into HR, because we just did a whole slew of interviews. So if we can continue to go forward with that and grab those people, that would help fill out, and because they really almost are at minimum staffing at the wastewater plant.
I tell you, this is one of those times and those situations that, and I know I had a conversation with the city manager, and he kind of opened my eyes to some stuff. Not everyone look at utility workers and our water system and stuff like that, and that we got to keep the water flowing and so forth and so on. And this is one of those times and one of those situations where I consider them as being, on the front lines, one of our primary responders, and I appreciate them, appreciate the work that they do, and I just, we were talking about, I know he mentioned even FPL, and then you think about hurricanes and so forth and so on, these guys are always not considered first responders, but hey, they're the ones that clear the roads and so forth and so on, get the water going, and but we do appreciate them. I know I do, and but thank you, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Singer,
No updates, sir.
anything else, Candy, or? No? Ms. Shealy? No. Mr. City Manager? Or, I'm sorry, Mr. City Attorney. I'm sorry, I didn't see you over there, man. You lost someone.
I thought this might have been addressed as a preliminary matter at the meeting, but I think it's probably worth noting for the record that this meeting is being held under special circumstances, of course, under the governor's executive order number 20-69, and in order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 and deal with the social distancing issues and other orders and health official guidelines, that the governor adopted this executive order. This executive order allows local governments to suspend the physical quorum requirement for the governing body, as well as suspend holding a meeting at a specific public place. In other words, the city council is permitted under this executive order to apply Florida statutes regarding remote telephonic meetings, which some state agencies are permitted to do. So that's the way this meeting is being conducted. In furtherance of those guidelines, city put out the requisite notice regarding this meeting, and for the record, this meeting can be available for access by the public on internet addresses that are specified in the notice. In addition, interested persons could submit written comments or questions regarding this meeting to a special email address that's in the notice, meetings@cocofl.org. Further, interested persons who wish to provide public input on agenda items during the meeting will also be able to do so by calling 321-433-8446 during the course of this meeting. Again, all of this is being done pursuant to the governor's executive order.
Thank you, sir. Is that it?
That's my report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, related to COVID-19, I've provided you all a situational report that has some highlighted items related to changes since the last one you received. As far as the city operations go, just some of the highlights in there. While we were in the meeting, we did just receive the 6 p.m. update from the state of Florida. And as you can see on your report here, there were 1,682 positive tests in the state as of 11 a.m. and as of 6:05 p.m., there were 1,867. So we are continuing to see those numbers grow.
I'm sorry, did you say 1,867, so almost 200 from morning to evening?
That's
Okay.
right, yep.
Okay.
So that's more than doubled since Saturday.
Yeah. One of the other highlights that's included in here is city staff is internally working on the implementation of the Family Medical Leave Coronavirus Response Act. This is a pretty significant piece of legislation that has a lot of implications related to the city operations that we are exploring daily to try to ensure that we're complying with the law as well as providing our essential municipal services. And so we're very close to pushing out the policy to our employees and then fielding any questions or comments that they may have, which I would imagine we will have some, because it's fairly significant as far as what the allowances are under the law. I believe Fire Chief Lamb mentioned the most recent executive order by the governor, 20-83, and that provided notification and updates on a couple of items for our citizenry to adhere to. One being if you're over the age of 65, to stay home and limit your risk as much as possible. That being the same for those with underlying medical conditions. They're also perceived to be at high risk. And then the final update that's kind of changed since, what the information the Department of Health was putting out was that they do encourage those employers still under operations to provide teleworking opportunities where they're available to reduce that contact. And the city has been doing that. You'll see on the update, we currently have 22 employees that are out telecommuting. That does vary day to day as we move schedules as well as those who are in and out of City Hall to accommodate childcare issues and other operational issues that we encounter. We look for that number to grow. We did receive some additional equipment that we ordered last week to make that available to even more employees. FPL provided an update today that they are discontinuing turnoffs all the way through the end of March at this point in time. Depending on the expansion of these cases, they will be reviewing that as well. Our garbage services through Waste Management, their call center staff, like ours, are telecommuting, but they're fully operational as far as our garbage services go. I do have some decisions for City Council to make. If you recall, at the last City Council meeting, this past Tuesday, City Council approved the cancellation of all city meetings with the exception of the City Council meetings, and that we would take it meeting by meeting. And so we're here tonight under a CMT type meeting. We did look at a modified meeting, but we were able to make it happen in pretty short time frame. And obviously we're going to learn a little bit from this meeting and make it better next time. But it would be my recommendation that the next meeting, the first meeting in April, that we would continue based on information we have from the CDC for the social distancing, that we would limit that meeting to CMT only. And I believe we need council action on that.
We would limit it to CMT only?
Yep.
CMT, what did I miss?
That's the,
It's the communication media technology would be used
Ah,
rather than having it open.
Sorry, I
to
missed that. Yeah.
Basically hold it like we are tonight.
Yes, definitely.
Yep, definitely.
Yes.
okay. And then at the next meeting, we'll reevaluate it based on current conditions.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Which means that next meeting, we would have, prior to it, the CRA meeting as well. That would be canceled. Okay.
Is there any reason why we need to have the CRA meeting?
There were a couple of items, I believe, that were coming through. One of them was the 603 Brevard modified agreement. We're still, I believe, waiting for comments from
But-
the other party. So
That it's not important that we have one, we can always do it.
there's nothing that's
Later, yeah.
causing a project to stop or an important budgetary decision.
Okay. Works for me.
We did speak a little bit, I guess, about the parks and open spaces. And we can continue to keep those open. We will work with Brevard County on some of the issues that you all highlighted. And then we'll try to maintain consistency with them. If we get to the point of instituting some sort of closure, we'll do that. I did want to mention that we did modify some of the timing of the restroom closures. I believe it's at 6 p.m. They're closing now, 1 hour after business downtown. They are closing those off. I did receive a email, I believe it was yesterday, from Councilwoman Koss related to the first billing, that $2.99 convenience fee for those that pay their utility bill through credit card. And I provided her response on that, and then also sent it out to each member of council so you could review that. It is a city council decision on what you'd want to do with that. I can cover some of the information that I had provided if you hadn't had time to read it. But essentially, we've reached out to our vendor, First Billing, and they're unable to just waive that fee because they're being charged by the banking institutions. And so they do make a small margin, but that's essentially their business practice. So the option the city would have, and this is the way we used to operate, is that the city would, or the water utility would essentially pay those fees. Instead of passing it on to the customers, the utility would have to cut that check. And in 2014, I'd attached the agenda item, but it's around $250,000, $250,000 a year. And what that does then is that's an expense for the water utility, and that would be taken into account as we do the annual rate study. So essentially, all you're doing is just spreading that back over the other customers next year. And, is that really the prudent thing to do? It's offered as a convenience fee when we have published the numerous ways that our customers have to pay their bill.
Yeah.
We're waiving late fees currently. We're not shutting water off. So it'd be my recommendation that we wouldn't do that, but that's obviously a council decision.
And I looked at it too, and I was, and I think we should just keep it just the way it is because we do have options. So that's just my take on it, Councilwoman Cox.
Yeah, of course, I was the one that raised it based on a call that I received from a constituent as well as next door neighbor. It's been a next door neighbor. Just one thing, question. And I mean, maybe this, I guess I don't have a clear understanding on First Billing. They just manage any kind of MasterCard or American Express or any
The transaction, yeah.
So they're a middleman.
That's right.
So rather than dealing straight with those, we pay them. And for example, the water bill that I received today, I'll actually be paying, it's between 5 and 6%, not 3%. $2.99 is almost 6% of my water bill. So just I was trying to figure out how we came up with the 250,000, because if we have 80,000 customers, I guess we're assuming that everybody would be using a charge card?
No, those were actuals that were included in that agenda item.
Okay, so, well, that's a lot.
It is.
We have a lot of people that use credit cards. It's for more
Well,
than water bills, though, right?
When there
Is
were
it for
when there were no fees
for other
assessed
things?
for it, it was
No.
very convenient for
Right.
customers. I would imagine now that that's changed.
Right, and now we have a situation where, well, we'd hope that people don't have to use credit cards to pay basic things like water, but we could very well at some point run into that. I think it's something, maybe the Utility Advisory Board will look at. I mean, I know we're going into the Stantec evaluation, their analysis, and so these questions will be coming back. But I know I hate it whenever my doctor was charging like $5 for me to pay with a credit card the $20 fee just because I didn't have the cash in my pocket. And now we're at a point where my son lives in Washington, D.C., there are many businesses only accepting Apple Pay because they don't want to touch cash. So we're quickly moving to, a society that doesn't use a hard currency like that. So I'm fine with, passing on this, but I think it needs to be brought to the attention of the advisory board and to really be given a good look at, because I started to figure out their profit margin. Certainly for everyone that pays a percentage I do, their profit margin's pretty significant. So if there's a way, we're, as a government, as a city, we want to act, of course, in the best interests of our citizens. We're not here for the purpose of creating a business's, an opportunity for a business to profit as much as we are to represent their best interests. So,
Are you done?
yeah.
Councilwoman Warner.
I remember when we made that change and made that decision, and it was not an easy decision because there were a lot of people using that, including, I think at the time, all of us were using that method to pay our bill. But at the end of the day, it was the people who aren't using that method are paying for the people who are, because we were paying that fee out of the utility funds. And I mean, it's like with any, anytime you use a credit card, somebody's paying the fee, whether you're using it at the gas pumps or where, somebody's paying the fee. So I don't necessarily want to change it, but I think that we might have some individual customers who, I know, as a matter of fact, one of the comments on Nextdoor is from a customer who's homebound with MS, so paying by credit card. And I think it would be possible maybe from somebody from customer service to explain to that customer, the other methods, bank card, whatever, where they could pay it. And I think for some people, it's just easier to go online and do it with a credit card than it is to set it up through your banking account. But if they had some help with that, they might be able to do it. So I think we can get around those individuals who have an issue with it. But I think we need to be cognizant of that we do have customers who, especially right now, can't necessarily come down and pay their water bill. So any other method that we can get them in, if our customer service people on the phone can, maybe think outside the box a little bit and figure out a way that some of these people can get their bill paid, some of these people that are homebound and, may not even have, friends and family who are willing to get out now and do those things for them. So I think as long as we're aware of those things and we're willing to deal with them on an individual basis, we can keep this fee. I mean, I pay it. Most of the people I know pay it without complaining about it. But you're right, when your water bill is only, $35 or $40 because you're on septic instead of sewer, and you're paying $3 just to pay your bill, it kind of does get your goat a little bit. But yeah, I don't see any reason to change it at this point. And with Stantec and all that stuff coming up again, we'll get to look at the numbers and see how many people are actually using it now, and it might make a difference. We'll see.
Thank you, Mel. Deputy Mayor. Go on.
You go ahead.
You got something?
Oh, I was just going to say real quick, so I did, when I was researching this, I did call the line, to pay my bill that way. And of course, they identify themselves as a third party and that they can help you with any bill problems and tell you about the charge. But I was just really struck by that. If I'm a water customer wanting to pay my bills, I call the number on my bill to pay it, and it's not even someone that could answer a question or so. Anyway, just another reason why I want to continue to look into it.
One thing I know what we're going to really face probably soon, it's going to be a lot of people getting laid off. A lot of people who are in the service industries. I'm fortunate enough to be in the industry that the virus doesn't really slow us down right now, but there's a lot of people that are in some industries that pretty much are shut down. So I know we're not doing shut-offs now, but what about those people if this thing lasts 3 to 4 months? In those particular industries, like a bar, for example, who's a bartender, that's their career. What's going to happen to those individuals who rack up, now kids are home, right? You 4 or 5 kids in the house all day running water. What's going to happen with that 400, 300, 200 every single month for the next 3 or 4 months? I don't know how long this is going to last. What's going to happen with a payment plan, I'm assuming. But just looking forward, I know that's something we probably got to get really prepared for.
Yeah, and we were actually talking about that internally today on how we might approach that. And you're right, a payment plan is something that's within our current policy, and we would take a proactive approach to that, even prior to, the end of this spread, to contact them and encourage, if they can pay something now, because it's going to continue to build.
Gotcha.
But also potentially roll out some sort of standardized payment plan, because every situation is unique, and it does take a lot of time for each customer service representative to talk through those details and work those out with our customers. So looking at our policies as far as the maximum allowed payment plans, and setting some standards, and then working with those customers individually to.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that it, sir?
I have one more item.
Okay.
We did meet on, believe it or not, regular business to some extent continues, and we did meet with our consultant, SM&E, related to the Parks and Open Space Master Plan today, and they are going to establish a steering committee for this plan, and they do need about 12 members for that. And so they want to get this, not the actual steering committee underway, but they want to get their work underway starting next week. So if there were any sort of closure to the parks, they can get that kind of work done now. But if you all would like to appoint a member of that committee, please send that appointment to Carrie Sheely, if you could, by this Friday, if there's someone you can think of. And then they're also looking for a champion of that committee, if City Council would like to appoint like a liaison to that committee. These meetings would be in the daytime, most likely, in the public engagement in the evening. So if there's a consensus amongst you for a member to appoint.
I want to be it.
Go for it.
No, I really do. I really
already
do.
did
I'm
that.
very excited about the grant that we were awarded this week.
I can't recognize your light. You didn't have it on. So,
It's on.
no, but it wasn't on when you started talking. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Us too. At any rate, I don't know if you were going to report on the grant, Matt, that we got from the Agricultural Department and Consumer Affairs. I actually called up there today to ask them about that. There were only 3 municipalities that received this 3-year grant, starting with the first year is a tree inventory, the second year is a management plan, the third year is actual plantings and other activities. But it puts us on kind of a top shelf list It was Panama City and Wellington were the other two municipalities that received it, but we beat out Satellite Beach.
Yeah, if you recall, there were two separate grants we applied for. This one being the one we really wanted because it took a more comprehensive approach to our tree canopy. And that will require an annual budgeted amount for year 1, 2, and 3. And we will, for the first year, the award amount is $25,000, and then we proposed matching $55,000, and that's for the assessment of our urban forest. And then the year 2, the award is $15,000, and the match was $15,000 by the city, and then same with year 3. So it was a competitive process, and we were quite surprised to hear that we were awarded.
And we also, that sets us up, positions us to get other grants. I don't know if you're aware of that, but with Tree City USA and some other foundations, if they continue to operate. Anyway, I think given even this pandemic and the appreciation for outdoor spaces, it's at least, it's a little silver lining, something to be optimistic about.
Thank you, ma'am.
And, go ahead, sir.
Councilwoman Warner.
Yeah, what was the last year that the last time we did a tree study was back in the early 2000s, was it?
As far as, we don't have anything documented on that as far
I
as,
remember when we did one, and when did we lose our Tree City designation?
that was in the early 2000s, I believe, when those signs went in.
Well, I know we still had it in 2004, so it would have been
Okay.
after that we lost
Yeah,
it, so.
it was,
It was after
the organization, when we resubmitted, they'll provide us the dates because they keep the
Okay.
history of those cities.
But it would be nice to find that old study that we did and compare
Yeah,
what's happened between now and then.
Yeah, and this
our
will-
tree inventory.
we'll get a GIS database
Yeah.
that we'll maintain going forward.
Yeah.
So we won't lose that data, and that'll measure the inch of the trees, the type of trees, all that,
Yeah.
locations.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
But I don't have a issue with Councilwoman Cost being the liaison if she wants to do it. I mean,
I don't either.
Okay, great.
And just the last item, there was some inquiry as far as what is how is the market impacting the city's finances? And I just wanted to provide just a little bit of an update. As you know, the city's investment policy, there's two main objectives, and that's safety and liquidity, which were very important as we look at the impacts of the coronavirus, the 2008 financial crisis, and the 2000, as they call it, the tech wreck, or the .com collapse. And just in a 22-day drawdown, the market lost 31.79%. That's 22 days. And that was as of Saturday, or end of closing last week. The 2008 financial crisis, that was over 355 days, and that was resulted in a 55.25% loss. So, and then the .com crash, that was actually over a 529-day period for 47.41% loss in market share. And so we're looking at a pretty steep loss.
oh, yeah.
And just to give an idea, we not only evaluated our funds that we hold, and we'll get a detailed report for you all to see, especially when we see this kind of level off. Of course, the last few days it's bumped up a little bit on investor with the stimulus packages and whatnot. So we will be providing you a detailed report. We have received some reports on the condition of the city's pension plans, that being for public safety as well as the general employees. And the police pension so far this calendar year was only a loss of 3.8%, which was, I think, good news when looking at the total loss. So they certainly a little bit better funded than the fire pension, and so they had a little less risk as far as their stock. So some prudent investment there. When we receive the analysis on the fire pension, we'll also provide that with the financial report. But as far as the city's budget goes annually, we are working with our financial advisor, Stantec, as they come in this year to do the financial modeling for each of our funds, the general fund, stormwater fund, utility fund. They will be evaluating each of those revenue sources, and they may not be able to give you an actual impact, but they're going to be able to give you an idea of how this change in marketplace will impact the revenues that we may be seeing. So that'll be a conversation when they're on site with the one-on-ones with each member of council. And that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cox.
For a report?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, first of all, Matt, I really appreciate you really being seasoned by fire here, aren't you? And I really appreciate how quickly and thoroughly you've responded to all my questions. I've been getting a lot, I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting a lot of calls in regard to the pandemic, in regard to the county's response, and concern with communications and concern with the leadership being shown there. And just wondering, I know that we are under the state of emergency under the county, right? So, and we haven't,
State of
and as you explained to me, and maybe you should explain it for everybody else, because I think the average bear probably doesn't understand that the county's state of emergency applies to all the incorporated and unincorporated municipalities, and that for us to go into our own state of emergency would actually kick in a lot of things that are not really relevant to dealing with this particular crisis, if I'm summing that up correctly.
Yeah, council may recall at the, I believe it was the March 11th meeting, you approved some modifications to our purchasing policy in advance so we could get those orders in for the preventative supplies to combat the spread of COVID-19. And so in this type of event, that's really all we were looking for. In prior events, hurricane type events, you know, you're facing physical damage to a certain location within the county. And so we declared that emergency in those instances so we can activate some other employment policies in order to ensure that we can protect the residents in advance and then also respond appropriately. In this particular case, it's a public health emergency, and it's really being ran at the federal and state level and the county level to some degree.
Okay, so one of the questions that I got today was actually Norris Park, who heads up our fire pension board, right? So there's a $2 trillion package on the table. It may even have been approved at this point. I haven't listened to the news. So, and there were quite a few things in there that were available to municipalities. Now, will we be applying on our own? Do we have somebody that will be tracking that? Or are we dependent on the county to do that because
So for the
it's their
reimbursement,
declaration?
yeah, the county's declaration of emergency also included the municipalities and unincorporated areas within the county, and that allows the city to seek reimbursement under the FEMA guidelines.
Okay.
And so on the
So we'll have somebody on that.
yes, we already, you can see on the report that I provided you, we have the FEMA event number already assigned. We've already secured our spot for the reimbursement, and with the purchases we're making in our financial system, we've been tracking that so we can provide that information to FEMA.
Yeah, then I got another call in, well, he wants a stay-at-home order. I don't know, you know, what's within our power to do here, but certainly, I mean, I see people outside, and I think it's okay to be outside, you know, in small groups or distantly, so, but our ability to enforce anything is, do we have the ability to enforce anything? I guess what we're doing with the police department is really great. You know, we're making a point of going around and talk to people that are outside.
I think one of the challenges we would have is that while we could make an attempt to secure our own residents, you still have residents passing through. I mean, we have probably, as far as Brevard County, the most significant state roadway network through our city. And so you still have folks passing through our city that would make it very difficult, and the police chief could maybe speak to that, but to institute something like that would need to be more regional, like you're seeing over in Orange County.
And now Osceola County as of tonight.
We are getting phone calls.
Yeah.
We are aware.
As long
Okay.
as the governor's not going to do it, it's counties, yeah.
And then I wanted to thank Samantha for putting together the video. So we have, because that was one of the suggestions made to me by a constituent, to have a video we can put out on social media, but on the website. And I know that, I think yesterday was Matt and the mayor that were in a kind of an interview format. And I watched it, and I'm glad we've got it, but I'm wondering, I don't think the interview format is quite right for this. I almost think I want to see one face that is a spokesperson for this. And when I think about the appropriate person for that, it would be Chief Lamb. And like, I've read the newspaper today in regard to the politicization of the communications at the county level, and I would really like to avoid that. Myself, I would prefer, I don't need to be in those videos. I mean, I want to be able to pose questions, but I really feel like we need a face to the crisis and I think he's got a very calm demeanor, and, his voice is pretty soothing and gives us confidence.
Yeah, and it will depend on the topic for each one, because there's certain questions that, yes, he would be able to answer, and there's certain questions that may be more appropriate for another person to answer. So it'll be based on that, and that's why I've been getting your questions ahead of time, so we can definitely plan for that. And we can set it up in any manner. I think it's definitely important to see that their elected officials are out in front of this, and that they are asking the questions that are coming in. And so that is why I think we should have the elected officials as part of the videos. You can choose not to be, that's fine. We can definitely structure each one differently. But it was to make sure that we know that our elected officials are asking the questions and getting the answers that your constituents are asking. So
Okay, then I think maybe what it is that we just need more shoulder shots, and that, sitting in the relaxed environment. Of course, it showed that we had them 6 feet apart. That was good. But the kind of, quick flash, get the news out, I'm just thinking that it's going to be important that we have a primary spokesperson.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, I think Chief Lamb is that, given, this public health emergency.
yeah, and also I want to say to that too is that please keep the questions coming. If you let me know what those questions are, I'm working on an FAQ add-on to our website as well. So I'm taking the questions that you're giving me, and when we have answers, putting those on there, and I'm trying to get that posted on our website. So when you get questions from your constituents, please let me know what they are, and I'll make sure to update that on our website as well.
Okay, great. I have one other item.
Okay.
Okay, and that is something that I've already spoken with Matt about, but I've been researching it for a while. Because of course, I ask questions. I'm informed by others' questions. And I'm sometimes frustrated because our meetings will go so long, and I'm aware that people don't have patience for the questions. And so I end up maybe not asking them at the end, or there are times when, that's just a frustration. So I've just been asking around other council members I know. I sought advice from the Attorney General's office, as well as speaking with the League of Cities. And one of the options that was posed to me was doing an agenda review meeting. And what this involves is basically a publicly noticed meeting where we ask questions. So I have the benefit of hearing your questions, you mine. A lot of the details get taken care of in that meeting. The actual council meetings become a little more functionary. So, you're just kind of going through the business, not a lot of questions in the business detail. However, you have more time for the public hearings, for, the discussion. I believe it would be a way to make things a little more transparent, because one of my concerns, a lot of times I'll ask questions, and directors know this. I'll even let them know what my questions are ahead of time, because they're questions that have been posed to me. And I remember when I was sitting in the audience and the council would make decisions, and I wasn't sure, well, what was that based on? Didn't you wonder about this? So now they are not, as I understand it, the school boards and the other cities that do this, they're not mandatory, so if a council member can't make it, they're not required to be there. You don't have to have all the directors there. It works just like a workshop, right? And I'm wondering, I don't know, Matt, what you think about, is this the time to think about doing something like that? Or I know that you weren't opposed to the idea.
I was gonna, if I can comment on it, there's just so much going on right now. There's so many different things that we're doing right now. I can't imagine putting anything else on the staff right now, but trying to, it's a good suggestion.
Well, am
but
I the only
it's just
one that
something
has meetings with the city manager?
No,
No,
Okay.
I get my questions answered before the meeting.
Right, so we all have separate meetings, so it's an efficiency for him as well, is what, be one of the issues. There may be things you want to talk about privately.
Well, I have one comment. So, just my advice: don't worry about other people and their opinions on your questions.
Yeah.
Ask your questions, 'cause that's why we're here. If someone gets out of hand and are being immature while you are asking those questions, then that's something that the mayor needs to handle. He controls the meeting. So do not be concerned. That's my opinion. It's just, ask your questions. That's why we're here. That's why we are elected. People want to hear those questions. They want to know that you are asking those, no matter how long it is. It is what it is. So I appreciate your question. Even sometimes I may not understand what your question may be, but that's for you. It's not for us. That's your question. So
But
that's just my
always-
opinion.
Yeah, but always remember that, and something I thought was a good practice, and I know I got frustrated a few times when I asked some questions that didn't get answered, and I asked it in the council meeting. If you can ask those questions prior to the meeting to the staff and get those answers and get it back to whoever you need to get it back to, that's probably the best practice. And but sometimes when
It's not in the sunshine.
But sometimes when you ask, if you're my director, if you got a question, that's the best time to ask that question, because sometimes we come in here, they're not prepared for your question, and they don't have an answer, and it kind of have them sitting there looking like, and so if
No,
you,
that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
that would be an opportunity. Even if that particular staff person wasn't there,
yeah.
be an opportunity to go back and just know what the
Yeah.
questions are before you're in the more formal council meeting.
Yeah.
So if there is no consensus, I am going to bring this up again, because I think what it does is it allows for more sunshine, it allows for more transparency, and I think it's at least worth a shot, and particularly when we look at having 2 new members on council, at least 2 new members, in next year.
Possibly 3, but yeah.
Yeah.
And
And maybe
Yeah.
that's a decision for the new council to make, because, there may be a lot of changes that need to be made with new council members. So, it depends on, somebody who has a full-time job, doesn't have a job, children at home. I mean, everybody's
yeah.
situation is
Sure.
different. So adding another meeting to what people are already doing may work for some people and may not work for others. Do you do it during the day when the staff is here? Or do you ask the staff to stay over another night? You know, there's a lot of considerations. So,
Yeah.
you know,
The
maybe it's
biggest
something
issue
to
for
look
me
at it
is
with the new council.
transparency and putting sunshine on our business. And I don't know, just one last question. So how many hours do you spend meeting with staff, or do you anticipate? Because I know I used to spend several hours with John every week.
With staff members?
Yeah, no, meeting with
Council-
you.
Council members?
Council members?
Council members meeting with you.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's
Okay.
organized meetings, and then there's phone calls, there's drop-ins, all kinds of correspondence.
Okay. Well, I've been reluctant to, bother you because I don't know.
Most
It
of
seems like
mine,
your time is really, really valuable.
most of my questions usually are in the form of an email, and information gets passed back, or, you know, it's usually just a quick question, and sometimes it's staff and sometimes it's the city manager, but I probably
You've
don't
been here
spend-
24 years, though.
Yeah, well, close to it, but I probably, not an hour on each agenda, but some of it I think too is because you're right, I do have more background. I probably had a lot more questions my first couple of years on council, and I'm sure the mayor did too, so we probably have less need for all of that because we see stuff and we know where the background is at, where you two probably don't, so he's probably not spending as much time with us as he's spending with the two of you, so, yeah.
Is that it? Councilwoman Warner.
No report really, other than to say I am getting a lot of questions, which I'm passing on to Samantha, and I'm kind of surprised at some of the concerns I'm getting and some of the things that people are looking to the city for that I would have thought they would have been looking to the state and the county for, and that's been a bit of a surprise because I'm finding that there's a lot of people that don't understand where the lines are in government. And I don't know how long ago we quit teaching civics, but there's a whole lot of people who know zero about their local government and really don't know. But to Sam's point, one of the things that I am seeing is that, you know, even though we have a city manager form of government and every city in this county does, with the exception of Palm Shores, people are wanting to know where their elected officials are. And I think after Brevard County finally put a meeting together yesterday, some of that will calm down because a lot of that was generated by the fact that nobody was getting any information from the county. And what little bit of information was going out to limited resources, and our major news sources were not being including in the stuff that was going out. So I think some of that will calm down too. But I agree with Councilwoman Cos. I think Chief Lamb should be the spokesperson for the city, not just because of his demeanor and his calmness and the fact that he wears that white shirt and gives everybody a lot of confidence, but because he is our emergency management director. However, I don't mind, you know, being the person to ask him the questions in the video so that they can see, as long as we give, I still think he needs to have the lead role. I think he's the person that people want to hear the expert information from, but I don't mind being, you know, playing reporter and asking him the questions to do a video or whatever, something along those lines, so that you get both. You get Jonathan's expertise and maybe get the, you know, the council's faces out there if that's what it is you're looking to do. But I really do agree that I'm more comfortable when he tells me something. As much as I love Mike Cantaloupe, I'd rather hear it from Jonathan Lamb, because Mike's, look at that face. I mean, do you want to live, you know? Jonathan's got just a really friendly, confident face, and so I agree that he's the person to give out the bad news to everybody. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Chief, I think you got a friendly face too.
He's got a pretty face, but it's mean.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Goins.
Well, one concern I had about I know we have some parks that do have bathrooms. There are several parks in our city that do not have bathrooms. Could we look in possibly in talking to Brevard County Parks and Rec, maybe a partnership or something with the wash stations at some of those parks that do not have bathrooms? Because we have quite a few definitely in the Diamond Square area, like Ferndon Prospect or Anderson Park, for example. Yeah, that don't have the bathroom to wash their hands. So I don't know if that's an option or not. I don't know if we thought about that, but maybe it could be a possibility.
You know what, even those parks without bathrooms, I think they have water hookups there for when they
No.
come over to hose
Well,
stuff down.
That's a whole nother story.
They have a
Parks and
hose
Recs in some areas within our city, they felt the need to go through and cut lines and cap off the lines and remove the spigots.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Provost Park is one, Anderson Park is gone, and Ferndon Prospect doesn't have a
Why
spigot.
did they do that?
I don't know.
There were some
but
people
it's just-
abusing
I don't know.
the water, and but I get it, but I understand where you.
Yeah, so it's I don't know if that's an option or not, but maybe that could be a conversation.
Yeah, so and we leased a few of those, and we recently, after the closure of some of our public facilities, rotated those to high-traffic employee areas. We could look at some of the parks. As far as hooking up, you also got to worry about sewer.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you just got to run it out in the ground. And
Yeah.
Problem there.
Okay.
So we looked at it with our city facilities. There's a lot that goes into that. Obviously,
Okay.
we'd have to secure them.
Right.
But there's certain activities in the parks that, unless you're playing basketball by yourself, you
Right.
shouldn't be playing basketball in a group because everyone's touching the ball. And,
Right.
so there's some activities that we would discourage in the parks, but we can look at that.
Okay, thank you. I brought up some of our signals in Cocoa, definitely that don't have the turn signals, and looking at upgrading some of our traffic lights within our city. And I'm pleased to know that the Brevard County traffic operations is actually are looking into doing a master plan for some of our lights. We have a lot of people in our city that maybe could be blind or that don't necessarily that need better technology at our lights. And so I talked to Mr. Smith about it yesterday, and so I'm glad that he's keeping conversation about it. So I'm happy about that. A big thanks to Brevard County Parks and Recs and all the schools and churches that are providing meals for a lot of our students and parents in most places. So I really appreciate them for doing that. I think that's really good, especially for a lot of people that don't have transportation, and a lot of kids who don't eat at home really rely on school meals. So we appreciate them for stepping up. And I think Brevard County Public Schools today are doubling their sites. So that's another thing that's really good. The next question is for Tammy, dealing with the Teen Summer Work Program. I know that's coming up really soon. I know we got a lot going on, but where are we with that?
We recently, because of the school closures, we're going to have an internal meeting to talk about it with
Okay.
Career Source.
Okay.
We need to make a decision if we should go forward with it, obviously for the safety of the students as well. So it might not be a great experience if they can't have the full experience. So,
Yeah.
but and I'm not sure. So we're having an internal meeting this week about it
Okay.
to talk to Career Source and make sure that they're okay with doing it. Part of it was a training, which was a group training with, in the past it was like in a classroom with all 15 kids or so. So
Got you. Okay. I was thinking about that.
Maybe do virtual training, but
Right.
it's the hands-on experience with the kids,
Like the
which is
mechanics
better
and-
experience for them, and they get that workplace experience. So I don't know. We'll have to talk about it with our with Matt.
Okay.
I'll get direction.
All right. That's all I really had. Again, I really like that we came out today with the showing the process of how to be engaged in our meetings. I know this is something new for all of us. But like I talked to Matt today about, my main thing is just want to make sure everything is transparent so people understand what to do when they're watching. Because sometimes, even though we put it on the Granicus, there's some people that don't understand the process. But when the flyer that you sent out today, this morning, I think it details everything. And I think if you continue pushing that out, I think people will be, some people don't watch the meeting anyway, but those that do just need to be informed. So I appreciate you for that.
Is anybody besides me hearing from people that they still can't hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It's very low.
I actually have that down here to
Yeah. I
mention it.
I did hear that it's better on YouTube than it is on Granicus, but they still can't hear. So that's definitely something we're going to have to address.
Okay.
Good,
Thank you.
sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you, Matt, for the work you've been doing. You've been doing an excellent job, and Chief Cantaloupe, you guys going out to the parks and addressing those issues. I mean, it's really do appreciate that, man. That was a big concern of mine, and some others have been sending me some emails, and you guys were right on it, so I appreciate that. A big kudos to Cambridge Elementary School and their staff, Coco Powell, Emma Jewel Charter Academy for the meals that they're serving, the hot meals that they're serving, the bag lunches that they're serving to the kids. And I know that Emma Jewel, it doesn't matter if you're a kid or not. I mean, you could be an adult. If you need a meal, they're going to give you a hot meal. So, but kudos to all the volunteers that are helping out. Today, Pebbles Catering there off of Dixon, and Celebration Tabernacle Church and Real Church, Inc. of Brevard County all partnered together, and they were serving over 300 meals a day, hot meals to residents. And I'm telling you, I stopped by there. I left the house and stopped by there, and they were lined up around the building.
6
Great
feet
event.
apart.
Yes, they were. No, I actually mentioned that to them, and they were spacing out. Yeah, they were. And but it was a nice event, and I guess they were going to feed and just serve food until they ran out for the night. And I think they're going to do that for the next 2 nights, I believe, starting at 4:30, and that's at 1046 Dixon Boulevard. And also, just to remind the public that we're going to continue to, keeping them informed and updated on the latest with reference to this coronavirus. And then Chief Lamb, Captain Ed wanted to be here. He wanted me to thank you and your firefighters that came out when he had his little incident here at the last council meeting. He was really, really appreciative of that. And like I said, he wanted to be here, but of course, the best thing for him is to be in. So I'm passing that on to you, and I appreciate you guys too as well. There was one other thing I had here. We mentioned the mics. Yeah, that was another issue. Some folks were talking about the mics here and how they're not getting those, and hopefully we'll start looking into maybe that and upgrading our screens here with some larger screens and maybe a little bit lower, just more once we get up and going again, hopefully, in this next budget. But I'm not gonna prolong this any longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and end these reports and move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion
Second.
from Councilwoman Warner, a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to council business number 8.1. Administrative Services.
Yes, sir. This is consideration of Miss Debbie Joyce as a representative of the school board of Brevard County on the Planning and Zoning Board. The Brevard County board approved this, school board approved this late February, and the city was officially notified March 11th of their appointee, so.
Yes, ma'am, and I got to meet her at the last Planning and Zoning Board meeting, so very nice and pleasant young lady, very smart lady. Councilwoman Cost.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Deborah is one of my constituents, and she is, we're fortunate to have such a caliber, be willing to be a volunteer leader on the committee. Her background is in construction, planning, and development, and she was a director at Tampa's Housing Authority. So she has quite a rich experience and expertise to bring to the planning and zoning, and she'll be a good liaison to the school board as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We get a motion from Councilwoman Cost, a second from Councilwoman Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, number 2, consideration of a donation application for Marine Resource Council, Administrative Services.
Yes, sir. This is an additional donation application received for y'all to consider. The donation request is for $1,000, requesting $200 per member. I'm not sure how to handle that with Councilman Bover not here. There's a summary in the item of your donations to date as far as fiscal year to date. And if each council member fulfills this request, it would remain, your remaining balance would be $30 in your, on each member's donation budget of $750.
Good.
Mr. Mayor?
I support it.
Just wanted to make one comment. So this was, referred to earlier by Jennifer Riggs' statement. There were 50 COCO citizens that supported that fundraiser and the MRC's efforts and raised almost $4,000. So this is a way to kind of leverage that kind of community enthusiasm and commitment. Also, when I tried to make a donation, I ended up making a donation at the very end of the fiscal year because we hadn't used our monies last year. So I'm hopeful that everyone will vote in support of this
Okay.
donation and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Councilwoman Warner.
Yeah, I just, because the council's money to give away is, and I think what the Marine Resources Council, let me start by saying, I think what the Marine Resources Council is doing is a wonderful thing. But I have always kind of felt like that the money that we have is to give to entities that don't necessarily get money or resources someplace else, like to the Cocoa High Choir, or like to the Little League for uniforms or for equipment and stuff. People whose other resources are limited, entities inside the city of Cocoa that are limited. And if you look back over our history, it tends to go to things for children, for a lot of reasons, and to deal with a lot of groups that have limited ability to raise funds and don't have other options or grant money or stuff. So I've kind of always liked to use that as a basis for how I make my decisions on whether to fund or donate the council's little bit of money, because it is a very little bit of money that we give away each year. And for those who don't have the background, we do it this way because there was a time when we didn't have a council meeting without somebody coming and asking for money, and it was very difficult to say no. Some of these people were really deserving and really needed the money, and it was hard because you had the football team and the basketball team and the cheerleaders and the baseball team, and then you started having the youth football and the Pop Warner football, and you can't say yes to everybody. So I always felt like this money was for us to decide which of those entities we were going to help out each year when they really needed the help. So for that reason, I am not going to support this. It's not because I don't support the work of the Marine Resources Council, but our citizens donated a big hunk of money to them a few nights ago, and I would rather save this money for some youth organization or some school or something in the city of Cocoa that has no other options for funding. And that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I would just say the MRC does not have money. They have very little money. They are the one organization that is charged with citizen science in our county. That's what, that distinguishes them from other nonprofits in our county, that they actually leverage, volunteers and citizen science. Also, last year, everyone left $500 on the table, okay? We didn't have the request for it. So I wanted to make sure that I made the request this year. Also, at least 15 of those people, of the 50 people that made donations that participated in that event were your constituents. A lot of people you know. So I don't know that they'll be very happy about your decision not to support it, not to support them when they're putting out $100 out of their pocket to make sure that this happens.
Well, I would hope that they would also support our youth in the city, and
Well, they do, I'm sure.
well,
And
Well, we
we
gotta-
have, and part of the money we've donated has been to youth organizations.
Well, we got a motion and we got a second. We got a motion from Councilwoman Cos, second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor?
How do we handle Councilman Bovair?
It's just the ones in support of it would contribute. and
it's
the
just like
ones that-
any other vote.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the
Okay.
motion's for the $1,000 for a donation of $1,000.
So, but you can
Well, it will be-
choose,
it will
a
be
council person can
250
choose not
each,
to,
yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
So then it would just be $200 per member that,
yeah.
That says yes.
That's
the
not
way-
how, that's not how it's gone in the past. It's,
That's the way I
the
remember it
decision is the
being.
decision. I mean, Anthony might need to address that, but it's always been,
On an
if the decision
individual
was
budget.
3-2 or whatever, 4-1 or whatever, the
Yeah, but if
motion was
we-
the motion.
Yeah, if we voted if it was voted 3-2, then you're basically forcing maybe someone else, that didn't want to contribute
Right.
to this to contribute. And
That's the way we've done it in the past, though.
Yeah, but I
don't remember it
thought
being
that was
way.
our own individual pocket of money. So you can choose not to, or you could say, hey, look, I could give $50 or $10, whatever it is.
It was basically a poll, what I mean?
Right.
You said you want to support, you support, you support,
Yeah.
you don't support, or whoever, and then you just make that motion based on who's supporting and who's not supporting. Was my understanding, the way I remember it being.
We can modify the request.
Right.
Anthony can advise.
Yeah, I don't have the FOM. I think doesn't the FOM specifically address, I mean, you could amend the motion if you want to allocate based on council
Yeah.
members. If there are only 3 of you here that would support a request, you can allocate what you have in your individual budget
Right.
by a different motion than $1,000, which is currently stated in the agenda.
okay, and I'll just remind the rest of council that when I brought this up some time ago, that I had a certain charity that I was interested in. I was told that basically we vote in unison to make that donation so that it is from council overall, but
So we have,
But anyway,
It's-
whatever we want to do.
what do we have in each
This-
account right now? What was that total?
I'm not sure if there's a policy. There's an individual budget for
Yeah.
each council.
Exactly.
And then there's other projects I think the city budgets for on a bigger scale. This is the way it's in the budget, and I don't have the budget line item in front of me that outlines it. I think it is on an individual basis. I just think in the past practice has been that it's voted as a group. So, but again, it is an individual budget, so I guess
Approval of the donation requires council's
to
approval
the
by
approval of the
majority vote.
item, right?
But I think historically, at least in the last 10 years probably, the city has budgeted an allocation to each council person, and then they have dealt with it on the dais. And I can't remember the last time there was a slight disagreement as to the donation, but ultimately, majority vote of the council prevails. But you have if you budgeted each council member individually with a certain amount, I mean, there are budget restrictions that maybe a budget amendment would be required, right? If you were gonna allocate more than their individual budget allocation.
If I recall, prior to the end of this past fiscal year, I believe it was Councilwoman Koss with her remaining amount in her account donated, I don't remember
Yes,
the
it sure did.
entity.
550. It's in the item.
Okay,
It's summarized in the item.
okay. So that was done on an individual basis? Or was that approved by all of council?
Well, that was because at the last minute, I realized the money was there. I made the request and got it in,
Carrie said it
fiscal
was done in
year.
reports.
and all I could ask
Oh, yeah.
for was my own.
Yeah, it was 500, yeah.
It was approved by council on the report.
Yeah. So are you suggesting, Anthony, that they just, if they want to do something different, they modify the requested action of what they're approving? Is that what you're saying for the vote?
Yeah, I'll just, for myself, I'll do the whole $230.
Right, so if all three of them do 230, that'd be $690. That's what it ended up being.
Yeah, that's kind of confusing, Anthony, because how are we going to make a decision about Mr. Bovier without him here anyway? I mean, that,
No, it's not
Wouldn't be
coming from his
included, no.
account.
well, I know,
Yeah.
but if we had have just went ahead and voted, would it have come from his account, or would it have still only been $800? Because well, we need to clarify, to get some clarification on this for the next time this comes up. Not that it's going to happen again this year, because we're all out of money, but for the next budget, we need to get some
We can clarify
clarification
it
on
in the
this,
next
because we're
budget.
not always all going to agree on everything we
No,
donate
right,
to.
I
So,
agree.
Right.
so there needs to be
Well, when I
some
brought that
clear
up, I was
policy.
told that we all had to.
No, it should have been a consensus on who was donating,
Yeah.
because no one should ever be
Right,
forced to
right.
donate to a
Well, I know
cause that they
one
don't
year I
want to.
donated my entire $1,000 to the YMCA, so, I mean, that was several years ago, but, I mean, so, yeah, I'm not so sure we're clear on how this is supposed to work.
So at any rate, I will amend the motion to
I would give my full amount.
donate, Mayor, are you?
Yes.
Okay, so to donate $690 from Williams, Costs, and Goins.
Second.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Cost, a second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 9.1. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. This is item 9, number 1, to approve a guaranteed maximum price proposal from Wharton Smith Incorporated, Sanford, Florida, for the construction phase services for chemical conversion and reliability improvements project at the Dial Water Treatment Plant, WS 1404, to authorize the city manager to execute the GMP amendment number 1 to the master services agreement with Wharton Smith Incorporated for construction manager at risk services. This is quite a large project, as you probably have reviewed from your agenda. It's a 20 million plus project that we're proposing. This has several smaller projects rolled up inside it at the Dial plant. One of them being is having a second large water transmission line exiting the plant, so we have two ways of getting water out of the plant if there ever were to be a catastrophic failure. There's the removal of the chlorine gas. For those who've been on the tour, there's that scary room with all the big cylinders in it, and we're going to be moving the liquid sodium hypochlorite. It's a lot safer, a little bit more expensive, but a lot safer for our employees, and we'll need some training that they need to deal with, and also some hazardous response for the fire folks who show up if there isn't an issue. We also have some security improvements that are going on concurrent with the plant, improvements, video, some sensors and other things, and that's all in accordance with the guidelines, the federal guidelines for safety for the type of facility that we have. So it's a large project, and it's also the first project that we've actually done using the CMAR process, which we approved about 2 years ago. And I'll just briefly go over that real quickly. It's a concept that's been used by many utilities before, but it's a first for us. We selected a couple of qualified heavy civil contractors, Smith being one of them. We asked them to bid on at least the preliminary design that we had at that point, preliminary information, and we asked them to bid on their overhead and general, their profit overhead and general administration costs. We also asked them to bid on some services fees in order to develop a concurrent design with our engineer of record. And so by combining the constructability and experience of the actual contractor who will build it with the design engineer, we believe we get a lot better plans with less gaps in them, plans with maybe less errors and or changes in the future. And by that teaming process, we think we also get a better price because they know more about that plan than anyone would. And hence we get a guaranteed maximum price that they're very comfortable with. We've analyzed and looked at that from the 30% through the hundreds. They've used a partial open book process, meaning that they've collected bids from all their subcontractors, which they've allowed us to look at. And so through that entire process, we believe that we're saving money with the city, and we believe that we'll get a higher quality project from the selected vendor who's going to begin work, which is Wharton Smith. So the big project is the biggest one that I've brought to council in the 11 years I've been here. The next one being is that 54-inch that we did, the big transmission line that was $17 million back in '08. So this is a big one. I'm excited. Wharton Smith is a very professional, excellent firm to work with so far, so we're very excited to move forward with them. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What's the wishes of the council?
I just wanted to ask one question.
Okay.
So how long will it, what's the anticipated length of the
It's
project?
about 19 or 20 months, a little less than 2 years.
And Wharton Smith, they have facilities in Cocoa, don't they, around, are they the ones that have, okay.
We're
Okay.
asking-
Motion to approve.
Get a motion from Councilwoman Cox,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Item number 2, interlocal agreement between the City of Cocoa and Brevard County to accept $175,000.
I'll go ahead and take this one. Nancy is not here. This is to approve an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Cocoa and Brevard County to accept $175,000 in Brevard County Community Development Block Grant funds for pool resurfacing and other pool-related improvements at the Dr. Jolie Smith Community Center. These funds will be reimbursed to the city by Brevard County CDBG and deposited back into the general fund balance, not to exceed $175,000.
Thank you, sir.
Does that include in the inside portion? I know it's dealing with stucco, and I seen them doing the retaining wall, and I know they're doing the resurfacing. But inside that $175,000, does that include inside of that building as well?
It doesn't cover all the costs of the entire pool area.
Yeah.
There's the chemical feed room.
Right.
There'll be a pool heater. There's a restroom, the showers on the wall there on the exterior.
Right.
All of that will be renovated, the roof, the walls. So that doesn't cover all of it. There was an amount in that project budget
Right,
to
that's hard to
cover
cover that.
a portion of it.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
We get a motion from Deputy Mayor Goins.
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Cox. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Authorize the city manager to approve a change order for Rush Marine LLC.
Okay. This item is to authorize the city manager to approve a change order to Rush Marine LLC for installation of 61 anchors to improve the stability and resilience of the seawall along the Riverfront Park Promenade. Approve a resolution amending the FY20 budget, budget amendment form number 20-053-A through the use of general fund balance. And I can answer any questions. I believe we actually received e-comment on this item, so somewhat exciting. It's our first electronic comment.
This comment on this agenda item is from Candace Rogers at 93 Delanoy in Cocoa, Florida. And her comment is, shortly after the knee wall design was selected, I addressed the council regarding my concern of the seawall and the planters. I wished to be assured that we properly evaluate the drainage of the soils adjacent to the seawall. Concrete can fall victim to water seepage. Water can quickly erode concrete, weakening it. It only takes a crack as wide as a hair to allow water in, and the water will take advantage and widen the crack even more, putting pressure on the wall. Will erosion of the soil next to the wall be an issue? Will the rebar being installed in the knee wall be properly coated to resist expansion or rust? Will drains evacuate water spilling into the plant beds during storms. These questions should be addressed before moving forward with this design. I also followed up by email regarding these concerns and was assured these engineering questions would be part of the final design. Were these studies done? If so, did it indicate that what would be done to avoid any of these potential issues? Do these ties suggested match what the engineering studies indicate need to be done? Why were these ties not part of the original bid? Thank you. Candace Rogers.
Okay, so I also received the email just prior to the city council meeting, which I appreciate. So not only do we get the comment, but we also can get some information to provide a response to the citizen. And essentially, the project was underway, and as if you go out there now and look at it from Lee Winter Park, you can see that portion from the actual walkway to the seawall is completely open, 3-4 feet down. There's a deep hole where they're doing the utility work, and they'll be replacing right behind the seawall is where the knee wall will be positioned, and that drops below the surface approximately 3 feet, and then it's continuously poured concrete footer that goes across the bottom of the planter bed. And so when that water comes down, it actually is directed away from that seawall area. And that was an intentional design by our engineer. They, in the course of digging that up, is when they noticed those tiebacks that provide structural support to the seawall were actually severed, almost in every one of them. And there's 61 down there. They may not have to replace all of them, but they're estimating it's likely each and every one of them. And that auger, that piece of metal that they use to join the seawall to that tieback, is a galvanized metal to resist corrosion, and then it's also poured in concrete to kind of protect it from the elements. So this was a cost-effective measure to ensure that our seawall is secure. After Hurricane Irma, they did an inspection of that because there was some washout right behind the seawall that went a few feet deep, and you could actually see some of these tiebacks. Well, in those locations and digging back a little bit more, you couldn't see any damage there. But further back, there were is where they were separated. And so this is something that we will also seek reimbursement through FEMA for.
Matt, I did have one email just come in from Jennifer Riggs that did ask, can you explain how this need came to light? So I'm not quite sure.
During the construction project, they noticed there's a major structural concern with the seawall, and it needed to be addressed, or we could potentially in a future storm lose the park could be washed out.
Yeah, and it wasn't something they can see immediately, so, but
So they found it in the excavation, it was all underground, so it wasn't anything the engineers could have seen prior
Right,
to.
unless they excavated an entire tieback.
Oh, just to clarify, this has nothing to do with the design we selected. That seawall would have to be backed up with whatever design we had selected, as long as we are maintaining the seawall.
That's correct. And some of you may recall FDOT was doing some work under the 520 bridge there. That's exactly what they were doing. It's periodic maintenance that they perform to inspect the seawall itself, those tiebacks. That's why they had to take down a railing, close that connector, and make those necessary repairs. So it's a regular maintenance item. I don't know when it was last uncovered for us, but
It would have been
maybe
when we
they
put the
built
park in.
yeah, it's been a while.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, 96, 98, somewhere between 96 and 2000, probably.
There
Yeah.
would have been a road over the top of those previously.
Yeah, we took the road out and put the park in. Yeah.
And,
Just to say, so this will be reinforced, so it'll actually be stronger than the prior wall.
It'll be stronger than it currently is.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, but not stronger than it was brand new.
I don't know that I'm equipped to
Yeah.
comment on that.
Okay.
Don't comment on that.
But it has
anyway,
nothing to do with the design we selected.
I appreciate your quick response, because I responded probably right before you responded before the meeting as well, so, thank you, sir. Is there any more?
Yeah, I had some. I do know that. I know what she's talking about. Because sometimes when the sea rises and they keep crashing on that existing seawall, it's going to be a slight gap between the knee wall and the existing seawall. But I believe, just in my opinion, just by doing this work, that 5-foot footer is going to help a whole lot with keeping it steady and keeping the foundation. So, nothing is 100%.
No.
But I believe this design is going to do the job. So that's all I have.
And these are the experts. They've been doing this for a long time. This is not their first seawall that they've done. So, but anyway.
I still have one question. Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Did, in your response, one of the parts of her question was original engineering study was done. So when you said our engineers designed it to make sure that the water was not an issue in eroding the seawall, is that answering the question she had? Because the question was, we were supposed to do an engineering survey to see what effect the water would have on the wall.
Yeah, and at that time, that question was whether FEMA was going to accept the placement of a wall there versus an alternate design from a structural perspective. And that's where they took the chosen concept, and that's why they did that poured footer all in one piece to add some structural integrity to that wall.
So that design came from the engineering study that Candace was asking about.
That's
Because
right.
we had told her originally a year ago when she had her original questions that an engineering study would be done prior to any design. So what we're saying now is that the design was based on that engineering study.
Yeah, the design was the engineering study. They had to make modifications. If you recall, we had that meeting, I believe it was early summer, maybe late spring.
Well, I think it was back
And-
in June that she had originally asked the question, yeah.
A long time frame before we had any action. They were going back and reevaluating
Okay.
their plan to ensure that with those adjustments made, we would still get a quality product that would withstand those
I was just trying to
forces.
make sure that we got the part of her question about the engineering study answered, because that seemed to me to be, because she's saying, I was told there would be an engineering study. Was there an engineering study, and what did it show? So that answers the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Warner, a second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we can move on to our item number 4, which is our multi-year contract. Utilities Director.
Yes, sir, thank you, Mayor. This is item number 4, approve a task order 2020-05 to CH2M for engineering services during construction for the Dial Water Treatment Plant Chemical Conversion and Reliability Improvements Project, project number WS 1404, to approve the multi-year contract from fiscal years 2020 through 2022. So this is obviously related to the previous agenda item that I just did. Services during construction include on-site inspections, meetings, coordination, change orders, RFIs, that kind of thing. If you have any other questions, I can answer them for you.
Councilwoman Cost.
I just wanted to ask, is the 2.4 million, is that in addition to the 20 million, or is that a part of the 20
Correct.
million?
That's in addition to the 20 million. And in general, the services during construction generally run, 10% is probably the industry average. So a $20 million project, $2 million. And actually, there's actually training also included in that. So it's not just services, because once we get the dial plant modified, we also need to teach our operators how to run it now with the different disinfectant that we're using in terms of liquid versus gas.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Warner,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Cost. And just wait a minute so we can call the question when he comes in here.
turn on the heat while we're waiting?
Well, can I ask about, it's CH2M Hill, but, well, CH2M now, but I thought they became Jacobs.
They are Jacobs. When they bid this particular project, which was an individual award for their services, they were CH2M Hill at the time, so their contract remains under that name until the contract expires.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Deputy Mayor, we got a motion from Councilwoman Warner, second from Councilwoman Costs. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we can move on to item number 5.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Number 5, to approve the second and final amendment to purchase agreement with Anderson Diving, also known as Logan Diving and Salvage, effective March 5th, 2020, March 5th, 2020 through March 4th of 2022, under RFQ 14-9-COC for the subaqueous pipeline assessment work. So as you know, we had actually 2 diving companies that originally had been awarded services. We primarily had ended up using Logan. They were one of the first ones to respond when the first time we had to actually call them. We actually pursued Ferraria, who was the other one. They actually didn't choose to want to renew their contract. So,
Thank you, sir.
here to answer any of your questions if you have them.
Yeah, I didn't see a price. How much is it?
This is not for a task order. This is simply
Okay.
to approve their contract. When they
Ah, okay. Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Costs,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Item number 6.
Yes, sir. Number 6 is to approve task order number 2020-06 to CH2M for SCADA process automation services for the Dial Water Treatment Plant Chemical Conversion and Reliability Improvements Project. This is project WS 1404, and to approve as a multi-year contract from 2020 through 2022.
Thank you, sir.
So again, SCADA services falls with our engineer of record. So it's together, all these items combined, combined for the total project. But SCADA services are for CH2M.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Warner, second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. If I can get a motion to adjourn, we can get everyone out of here.
Motion to adjourn.
Get a motion from Councilwoman Warner, a second from Deputy Mayor Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.